Hello, this is Eric Levin, the Visual Effects Supervisor for Starship Troopers 2, and I'm going to take you through some shot progressions and sort of show you how we do things for the fantastic special effects imagery on Starship Troopers 2. The first shot we're going to look at is from the Outpost battle. It's called OP2, and with all the visual effects shots, everything starts with a storyboard. In these cases, all the storyboards were drawn by Phil Tippett himself, the director of the movie, and these are sort of real small thumbnail sketches. This shows the troopers sort of getting ready for the onslaught of bugs. Bugs are kind of hanging out in the background here, obscured by a big sandstorm that's kicked up. Now the first step for us at Tippett Studios is to create an animatic, which is sort of a test bed of what the shot's going to look like. It's sort of a real rough approximation. That's what our animatic looked like for this shot. The next step is to actually go on location and shoot the background plate. And that's what it looks like here. Not too exciting without any of the storm or bugs. Plus you can kind of see the background. The stage wasn't really big enough to go off into infinity, so we're going to have to extend it in post-production. But that's what the actual background plate looks like. The next step back here at the studio is the match move, where we create sort of a virtual set for our animators and lighters to work with. And this is a very simple match move because it's a lockdown camera, but it's still a necessary step. Then we move over to the animation department. Here you can see bugs actually being animated, walking around, hanging out, looking menacing, preparing for their big attack. And the next step, once the animation is final, is to light the bugs so they look photoreal. It's a pretty dark scene, so these bugs are kind of dark and mysterious. And they do sort of have an overall ambient feeling for being on this desert planet. And then the next step is the composite, where we start throwing all the layers together. This is photographic dust that we throw in. We add some blue flashes to simulate lightning. We add some debris in the foreground and just make everything a little more evil and menacing looking. And then when we put it all together for the final shot, it looks like this. So big sandstorm, people running around, debris in the foreground, lightning strikes going off. Very evil and menacing. The next shot up is also from the Outpost battle. The storyboard that Phil drew looks like this, and it basically shows the bombs that were fired off the Y racks of the outpost coming down and creating gigantic explosions that engulf the bugs and generally cause them much pain. So our animatic that we created to sort of show Phil the direction we were going looks like this. Couple of bugs getting hit, and those yellow bubbles will represent what the explosions will ultimately look like. So the background plate that was shot on location, similar to the other shot, not much going on. That bright light in the shot will show off the curtain that's hiding the back of the plate. But mostly just some guys sitting around and a big bright light that goes off. Not very exciting. And again, once we get it back to the studio, we start with the match move, creating our little virtual Tron world here. And this shot, we're showing a rotoscope layer where we actually separate the foreground and the background so we can throw our bugs behind the live action of the foreground of the troopers hiding behind those walls. Our animators had a lot of fun with this shot, throwing bugs all over the place, just general chaos and mayhem, and you can notice the little bits of bugs flying off there. Those gray domes will represent where the bombs will ultimately be, but for the animators they're just going to be gray for now. The next step once again is lighting. And this is going to show a bunch of different lighting passes. Some are really bright to simulate where the explosions are going off. Some are really dark to show just sort of the ambient tones of the lighting. But when we put it all together, it'll start to look like this. So we've got the background plate with the bugs, some dust going off, some shockwave from the explosions themselves, bugs in the explosions. When it all comes together, it's a huge monumental shot with lots of different layers, smoke and debris, and bugs and people and bug bits and general chaos that comes with semi-nuclear bombs. The next shot we've got here is when the troopers first get to the outpost. Phil wanted to have a gigantic tidal wave of sand come over the outpost and actually engulf the entire thing. So the first thing we did during pre-production was actually create a tube of cotton. It was about a 3-foot in diameter tube that we covered with cotton and just sort of rolled it around. But when we did it at the right speeds and composited layers upon layers, it actually gave a pretty interesting look. We put it together with a very small miniature of the outpost. It was only about a foot tall. And we threw in some lightning strikes and created what we thought would be a pretty interesting look. So the next step was to come back to the studio and actually photograph our miniature of the outpost. It was about 3 feet tall. We shot it on our stage. We had some smoke blowing through there. The lightning was actually created by having a guy up on a ladder with a mirror and a big spotlight pointed towards him, and he's shown that light back onto the outpost. So there's a little low-tech solution for you guys. Here's the rotoscope layer. Many layers of rotoscope in here to separate all the troopers running towards the outpost there. Lots of hard work since those guys were all running and moving. Here's another layer of rotoscope. This is the actual outpost. That's flapping digital cloth up there. Here's another layer of rotoscope. These are layers of lightning, and this is the lightning that was created by our compositor for this shot. All hand done and timed to make it look interesting. And here's some of the other composite layers for this shot. This was again giant storm that we created with essentially a big roll of cotton. We put in those flashing lightnings to make them look more interesting and exciting. That's the actual crash of the wave as it comes down on top of the outpost. Here's some lighting, interactive lightning hits for the outpost. And here's the whole thing put together with layers of smoke and debris and camera shake and the storm in the background and the lightning and the miniature and the foreground outpost and the crash of the wave as it comes down. Very exciting. Weeks and weeks and weeks of work for seconds of on-screen entertainment. Now here we have a very exciting shot that Phil explained to us through a series of storyboards where basically he wants the camera to start on the ground, corkscrew all the way up above the outpost and into the sky, which is going to reveal a whole mass of bugs just sitting around waiting to unpleasantly devour our heroes. And we go way up into the sky and the clouds will obstruct the view. So again, the first thing we did was put together an animatic that's going to sort of show the whole thing in motion. And it's a very simple animatic, but kind of gets across the feeling of the shot. We start on the ground, go above the heads of our heroes. And there's a simple representation of the outpost. Those little boxes represent bugs. And these doohickeys represent clouds. So the first thing we did for this shot was to actually shoot the actors on location. And we got this shot with a crane that was able to get about 20 feet in the air. So we start as low as we can go and we go as high as we can go. And we just had the actors sort of hold their position there. So that's the actual production plate that we shot on location. And our miniature was about 3 feet tall, sitting on a base of about 16 by 16, covered with dust and little miniature rocks and a little sand and all that stuff. But again, we can only get about 20 feet into the air, so that represents as high as we can go for our miniature. When it starts getting into the composite, we start putting all these elements together. So one of the elements that we have to deal with are the bugs. These are the bugs that our compositor took and started sort of interactively lightning so we could see what was going on without revealing too much. Phil wanted to keep the whole shot sort of dark, kind of an oil derrick at the Black Sea feeling. So we wanted to have a lone, desolate feeling, but still be able to see what was going on. So those little pieces of light represent the bug zappers. That's our miniature outpost in the middle there. And then we add a layer of diffusion caused by smoke and rolling clouds. And when it's all put together, it looks like this. Start with the actual production plate. We throw in some smoke that was added up in composite. And from there we transition into the miniature plate. And once the miniature plate gets to the top, we start scaling it down so it looks like it gets further and further away. There are bugs and bug zappers that have been thrown in there. And then the whole thing is wiped clear by black menacing clouds. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed this look into the fascinating world of visual effects. I'm Eric Levin. Goodbye.